Hey YouTube family, it's your girl Jazzy, getting jazzy with jazz. And if y'all want to have a good time, YouTube family, just like I do, come on over. And I need y'all to go ahead and do this for me, like, comment, and subscribe. And then we going to get the party started. Good morning, YouTube family. I hope y'all had a good night and you were very blessed within your night. So this is Jazzy, getting jazzy with jazz. And I'm coming to y'all with BMF. When I tell y'all, I get a kick out of recording BMF every time that it's time to record it. And it's BMF, and then this is episode 3. I may be wrong. It should be 3. If it's not 3, it's 4. But the title is Good Faith. And then it starts, it starts with Meech, T, and a Mexican. And they're all in, the bottom of a truck. And they're waiting to get to their location. And more than likely, it's a trade. And a trade-off. They trying to sell, they still in Mexico. Okay, and then Terry said in the voiceover, he said that he got in the game off the strength of it being just them against the world, right? And then he said that Meech, but Meech, it started to change pretty much. And if y'all know how the story go for real in real life, he did change. And then T was trying to reach Meech, because they panned over to T trying to reach Meech on the phone. And then, of course, Meech wasn't answering. And then he not answering, and he says that he knows that he is dependent on him. Then Markeisha knocks at the door, and then she's saying it isn't 50 boys no more, pretty much. And she was saying that stay on top of it because everyone is dependent on you. So it's not just him that's going to get effed up if it falls through and it's on negative. It's going to be everybody. So it's a bunch of people that's dependent on him. And then it pans to Meech and Duff talking about how the way is grounded and ready to be moved to. And then it pans to Nicole talking to her boyfriend about how she spent her night in jail. And then her boyfriend talking to her on the payphone now. Get this, the payphone. And it was 2 girls that came over. And they, like one girl, she kind of rubbed him on his shoulder and on his back. And then, of course, he was looking. And then I said, ooh, wandering eyes. And Nicole had just said that she wasn't going to be like her friends that was going to pretty much lose her man. And it looked like she going to lose him, unfortunately. And then what he told the girl, why he still on the phone with Nicole, he's okay, I'm going to holler at you. And he was still looking, and he couldn't even properly talk to Nicole because he kept looking and nervous and all that stuff. And then he tells her that he running out of minutes on the payphone. And Nicole says, okay. And I said, she a little green. I hate it. She a little green. She's very green. I hate that, but I guess that's just how it works. And then Nicole walks down the stairs, and then she walks down the stairs, and then she tells her dad, because he was coming down as well, taking the bags down. She said, are those mom's bags? And then her mom said, yes, I'm not going to send you alone to Atlanta without for you to go down and pretty much go down there and pretty much make a mockery of her. She always be thinking of herself now. Get that. She just like Meech. They are the exact same. And Terry and his daddy are the exact same. So get that. And then, she still didn't really get over the fact that her daughter pretty much told her about herself in a nice, respectful way. And I meant to say, I agreed with it because with her being, judgy, and just trying to hold her kids in proximity, close proximity, and not giving them a chance to do nothing. And I said, And then she told her mama, because her mama comes out of the pan, and she told her, she said, well, we're not, she said, do you really think that I'm just going to go down to the university and then just host a whole, just, what you think I'm going to be doing? And then her mama said, well, I'm not going to let you just go down to the university and host a whole bunch of just be pretty much be down there being promiscuous. And then she said she must think that she just gonna go down there and have sex and just host a whole marching band of all men and this and this and that. And then Lucille says that it doesn't matter what she thinks. And it don't matter what you think because you got a mind of your own. And then I said, they ain't gonna never get together and they ain't gonna never get along. What's gonna have to happen is they're going to have to, I'm trying to see. What's going to have to happen is Lucille is just going to have to cut the purse string. And she going to have to let her experience stuff on her own. Because she going to drive herself crazy trying to protect her. Especially she going to be miles and miles away in New York. I mean, not New York. Atlanta, at Clark Atlanta University. And then Brian is still looking for Meech and has an alias that he thinks is connected to Meech. And then it pans to Meech attempting to get busy with a young lady before he gets a knock at the door, and it's Lucille Southwest T, because Southwest T came in and said, what's up? And then it's Lucille, Southwest T, and Nicole. And let me just say this. You know how Lucille is, right? And she got to have the flow. And she pretty much scared that girl that was in there, and she said she had something smart to say. And Lucille came in and she's saying that it's nice in the apartment. Then before being all disrespectful and judgy, saying it's either me or the young lady. And the young lady, she says she loves the Lord and she prays every night, and that she is very, very nervous. And Lucille says, I done went back, something saying that she loves the Lord and she goes to church every single night, every single day. And she was nervous and she was stampering. And then she said, I pray. She said, I'm a Christian. And then just wasn't saying nothing that Lucille believed. So he just pretty much, she said, is it me, Lucille? She asked him, she said, she told Meech, is it me or is it her? And then I said, oh Lord, so she got to leave. So he told her that she had to leave. And then she came, as soon as the girl left and he closed the door, and then she said, Get something to wear to church because you need Jesus. Then says, it's Nicole that says, when it was me, because Nicole said, when it was me, I was a whore, I was a slut. And Meech, why he moved away to, okay. And she said pretty much just voicing that it's always different when it comes to Meech. And it's always different when it comes to T. But it's not different when it comes to her. And she did, and her mom, she did talk to her so bad. She just cussed her out, and she was not godly. How she is preaching. I'm like, oh, Lucille, you a little of a hypocrite. So it panned out from her. And then it panned out from them, shall I say. Then they were still arguing. And then it pans to T. I'm telling Meech, why don't we move the weight to Jay Pusher without telling him? He said, why you move the move the weight to Jay Pusher without telling him? And then he pretty much was, being snarky and a little disrespectful to Terry. I don't like how he be talking to T. I really don't like how Meech be talking to T. And Meech explains that he had to do the ish in the background, pretty much. He had to do it in the background because Brian's still down in Atlanta. And he transferred to ATL. And T said, as long as Brian is in the A, the product isn't safe. And it needs to be moved back to the D. And then Meech said he already is so many steps, 1,000 steps ahead of him. And then Meech, I'm like, Then it pans to Nicole school, Morris Brown. And then she takes her before being, as it was let me just say this. It was a little boy, a young boy, and she was like, don't do that. And then once it pans to Nicole and Morris Brown, of course, and then she was like with her looking around, and then a young student is looking, I already said, looking at Lucille, and then she's interrupted by a lady, and the lady Alba told her that, hi, what sorority are you in, and all that. And then she said, I told y'all all wrong. So I'm just gonna tell y'all what I remember. Now, what happened was she was walking around the campus, then it was a woman, and she asked her, well, what sorority are you in? And she instantly, Lucille cut the lady up, and she told her, well, I always thought that sororities were cliquish and things like that. And I said, ooh, she done offended that lady. She has offended that lady. And then Lucille don't be caring. That's why I'm telling y'all, she is just like Meech. She don't be caring how she offended somebody. And then she called Lucille an outsider. And then the lady says that her daughter is passing down the legacy. She's passing her legacy down to her daughter. And then her name is Lori. That's something to keep in mind. Her name is Lori. And then Lucille says that her daughter got a full ride standing in the fall, and she's starting in the fall. Then the lady, she come back and she said, well, my daughter is already there, and she is already in college, and she's pre-med. And she came in a year early. And then to get a jump start in things. And then Lucille leaves saying, Nicole, it's time to talk about your major. Cause the the little girl is pre-med, and I said, "Oh gosh, so it's gonna be Lucille gonna be like that." And I'm like, she always in competition, and that's why I keep telling y'all. Remember, her dad, she is the epitome of Meech. Meech is the male version of Lucille. And then because the lady said that her daughter was pre-med and this and this and that, and then it pans to Meech talking to the sales lady about the cars and the shipment, and Kenny Johnson, now I can't remember their name, Kenny Johnson is handed to Meech, possibly in connection to everything. And then T said that we need to move our business elsewhere, or not in that car shop no more. And then it pans to Charles, and Charles singing and looking and flirting with the waitress, and the waitress knows exactly who he is, and Cecilia knows who he is, and Lucille starts to have to clean up before. So Lucille, they mama, you know, she always be coming in trying to boss stuff, like trying to boss everything, and she cleaning up Meech house and all that. Oh, I wouldn't have been doing that. And she said that he needs to clean up, and he tells his mom that she does not have to clean up before gifting her a coat, and then she loves it, but you know, she always has something to say about it. And she says that she can't take that from him, and she can't take the gift from him, and he will not judge her for not taking it. And also she lets him know that she never judged him for what he was doing, so he can't judge her. And then it pans to them going to church, and she is amazed at the church because it has an ATM, and then the preacher welcomes them and holds his hand out. So that was the assistant preacher, and he held his hand out like he was wanting the offering, and then Meech gave him a high five and all that. And I'm like, and before that, Meech was, before this happened, Meech was in that lobby cursing. And she said, Meech, look, you will not embarrass me down to this church. And I said, oh, Lord. And then Duff and Kenny Johnson now is talking. And Kenny Johnson, he not understanding that he has, you know, he's a loose end pretty much. And he will understand that he want him to take the money so that they can be in the clear. Because he a loose end and he can't have him messing it up. And then somebody knocks at the door, and then it's Detective Brian. And he says, Kenny, I know you in there. And he said, I saw your car out there. Open the door. And he kept calling his name, and he didn't answer. And then Duff was pretty much saying, we got to get up out of here. He got him up out of there. I said, And then when he broke the door down, he came in there to an empty house. And of course, he was looking around. And then the patio door was open. And I said, I don't guess he didn't threw the man out the window. I don't guess they didn't jumped out the window. I don't know what happened. But you know how they be doing. And then it pans back to my boy Clifton Powell, and he is the preacher. And he up there preaching about the Bible, talking about money is a root of all evil. And then Lucille is shaking her head, and she says, no, sir. No, sir. And it didn't. She had me cracking up because, you know, she wanted to tell him about himself, too. That ain't the word. And then it didn't say, he said, it didn't say money. It's the root of all evil. So he was just pretty much saying that you need to donate when you come up in his church, because he all about the money. And he all about pretty much pimping the darn people in the church to give money. And then Lucille, she mouthed, no sir, again. And then the collection plate is being piled up. When I tell you piled up, it was thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars up in that collection plate. I said, Now see, that's what it be going. That's what be going on up in the churches these days. You just gotta find a good church, and when you find a good church, you have to stake out churches, because I can definitely agree with that. And then it pans to Bryant pressing the sales lady down. He said, you lied to me. And you told me that you didn't know. You didn't sell this car to this brother. And then he shows her the picture of Meech and Duff that came in, right? And then he said that it was under aliens. You said you didn't know Meech, but he said it's nothing on the sales records that says that you even know Meech or even sold anything to Meech. But it's something on the sales record under alias Don Granco. And then she says that he gave all the proper documentation. Then she slams her hand on the desk when she said he gave all the proper documentation. I said, okay, girl, yeah, you getting it. But you better watch out, girl. And then he put his big hands on her hands, on top of her hands, saying, "Bish, you grimy, and you on my list." I said, oh, Lord, Jesus, gosh. And then she snatched away her hand and got up to leave. And I said, he just not going to just stop. What I want him to do is, I'm just always a person that I said, it ain't even that darn serious. It ain't that darn serious. And it pans to Nicole telling to Nicole. Now they still in the Nicole is telling Meech and Terry that she's telling Meech that he did not come to her graduation to celebrate her after 6 months. And she was pretty much peeping his game and said, you didn't come to my graduation to celebrate me 6 months later. You came to my graduation to put the spotlight on you like you always do. I said, because he just like your mama. You know, girl. And then she said, I'm going to be making my money on my own. I don't need y'all. And then Terry said, so we ain't going to be paying for your lawyer no more then. And she said, well, I didn't say all of that. That's the least y'all can do. Y'all can continue to do that. That's the least y'all can do. Oh, Jesus have mercy. I just was cracking up. And that is the least they can do, because they just, my. So it paying back to her mama, you know. And you know what? I had that wrong, y'all. So she did tell Meech them this now. But I had the place wrong. Because she told them that before they even went to church. Oh, they was in church. It was in one of them. And then Lucille, she thanked the Reverend for the service. And then the Reverend said that she has a gift and said she should join the church. And then she went ahead and scoped the Reverend, and she told the Reverend that church And he said she should join the church. And so she want to be a church mouse to the belle of the ball. He told Lucille. And I said, what now? A belle of the ball? I knew what he was saying, but I was trying to see if Lucille was going to peep what he was saying, and she did. And Lucille quickly said that they see things differently. And she said humility and modesty are godly traits, aren't they? And then he said, yeah. And then so she had to come back at him. I'm reading these notes, y'all, because so I'm just gonna sum it up. So what he was pretty much trying to get her to do is, join the church. And he was saying that riches on top of riches. Because he could see, he thought that she had a little bit of paper. And I'm pretty sure that they knew who they were. They knew who her kids was, her sons, Meech and Terry. I'm pretty sure, because they just was worldwide. They BMF. Like, for real, for real. Coming up in the church. That's why that man had his hand out like that. And I'm like, And then it pans to, out of the church and all that, it pans to Southwest T and then Meech. And they were both, watching the young lady doing her dance, her singing and her dancing and all that. And I'm like, she pretty good. She pretty good. And then the hype man saying, we're going to find out who he is in a second, saying that that's what I paid for. And his name is Huggy, y'all. Huggy is the name, saying that Purdy, and Purdy is the name. That's her singing name. Baby. And he said baby by grabbing her around her neck, not aggressively, but like his girl, like that. And then he put his arm around her, and then Meech was just clocking it. And then, T, he always be, the modest one. And then he said, my name is Meech. And he was just saying what his name was. And then Meech did too. And then he said, And then he said, well, it's a blessing to, you were good. You were really, really good. And then he clocked them. Then now Huggy, he gonna sit up there and say, okay, so I'm gonna let you and your little fan club keep talking, and then I'm gonna be in the car. And I said, oh, wow. And they both had their eyes on her because they was trying to get that money. And they always be doing Meech, like he said, he always be 10 steps, millions and millions and thousands of steps ahead. And he already had clocked that when he saw her at the strip club at the bar. That's the same girl at the strip club at the bar. And Meech, and then Meech spots a young lady, right? Well, he's trying to push up on her, and he pushing up on her hard. And then he said, what's your name? What's your name? Because he just left Terry. And he said, what's your name? And she said, Maria. And he said, a black girl with a not so black name. And she said, what's your name? And he said, Meech. She said, now I know your mama didn't name you Meech. He said, Demetrius. He said, so can I get your number so I can go ahead and spend all the money that I got on you? And she said, I don't give my number to the first man that I meet. And then it was all it wrote. And then there was a man that was like directly beside him. He had a pencil in his ear. And then Mitch was pressing hard on her and all that. And he wanted her. And he said, okay, how about I do this? He wrote his name and his number on a piece of napkin. I said, it had to have been a pen. Because I'm nobody writing no name and number on no napkin without it breaking. Tear it up. And then Meech and T, they talk to the young lady, and it pans back to the young lady. And then she says that Terrell comes up, and Terrell, which is Huggy, Terrell comes up and he is interrupting everything. And he is saying that everybody trying to touch everything I touch turns gold. So of course she gonna be good. And then Purdy is the young lady, of course, I already told y'all, from, the club. And then she said, thank y'all for coming out to support. Thank y'all for coming out to support. And then Meech said, so this all yours? All her props and everything. And she said, no. She said, it's the label. But she appreciated them for letting her borrow some cars and, helping her. And then they helped her, and they came, and then they donated some cars and all that stuff, and probably some more props and everything. And she was very, very gracious. And she told them, she said, well, I gotta go and get out this stuff. And then before she could even finish leaving, I'm thinking that she finna open her makeup kit with the mirror, and then where the makeup and eyeshadow and stuff supposed to be. Why is she sniffing? I said, gosh. I said, I guess to deal with him, you gotta do all that, but it's not that. And then it pans back to Charles, and he's at B. Mickey's house and his girl's house, which is Asha. And he was just so grateful. And he said that I'm so grateful that you, let us stay, or let us stay. And then he said, well, you've been eating me out of a house and a home, so I thought that I would just come. It'll be gracious to come to your place and go ahead and get something in return. And then they were just talking, and then he was just saying that, well, he found somebody pretty much, because Asha, she was saying, well, you will get love, because B. Mickey said he had no idea that Lucille and him had divorced. And they were just both saying that he'll find love. And he said, I already have found someone. And he was so excited about it. And then he tells her name is Cece, and that she worked at the restaurant. And she is a bit upset. She is a bit upset. I shouldn't put that in there. And then they discuss the record label. So, going back, I'm going to reroute that. She just was saying that you should have love, and he was telling her, Asha, that he did find someone named Cece, and he is going to go on a date with her, and he is very, very interested in her, and he met her at the restaurant. And they pan over to the Meech and Southwest Tea discussing that they should get a record label and what the record name should be. So, off of Richard and all that, he told B. Mickey and Asha that he found somebody. So, they was just trying to come up with a record label. And that he, that they need to just come up with a record label, a record name. And a knock came at the door, and it was Jay Pusha. And then Jay Pusha was pretty much just telling them that he didn't clean all the work out. He said that he saw their portion and then he saw his portion, and it's pretty much all gone. And then Southwest T just pretty much told him, he said, he a snake and Meech, and you should know of all people. You should know that. I said, He said that he should know. And he, of all people. And then it pans back to Terry and Hoop talking to B. Mickey. And he's saying that he wants to be, in. And he just, Hoop, he was holding the gun to B. Mickey's head and all that. And T was just saying, well, he said, am I in? Am I back in? He said, no, but we'll be in contact. I'll be in contact. And then when he left, YT said, it's good to keep him around. Because he was just pretty much saying, Hoop was saying that he don't understand why he won't put him on. And then Hoop was, and then Terry was saying, well, because he disposable. And we can keep him around as long as we need him. And then he can be gone. And he is disposable. And that was the episode, y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed my episode. And I wrote 3 pages of notes. And I hit the important parts for y'all. So I want y'all to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm about to check out The Chi. So I'm going to be watching The Chi and noting for The Chi. I had that up before the end of the day. And I'm about to put BMF up now. Bye, YouTube family. And that was the video. And again, this is Getting Jazzy with Jazz. I love all my YouTube family. And I hope y'all just give me a like and a subscribe also. And I can keep the content pumping out. And I love y'all. And y'all have a good one. Bye, YouTube family.